Lumosphere English.
Hello and welcome back to Lumosphere English. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex. We're so glad you're joining us today for another insightful conversation.
Absolutely, Alex. Today we're diving into a topic that I think every language learner has pondered at some point. Why do children seem to learn languages so effortlessly compared to adults?
Oh, that's a classic. It's a question that often comes with a hint of frustration for adult learners, isn't it? Like, why can't I just absorb it like a sponge the way a 5-year-old does?
Exactly. You see a kid barely able to tie their shoes, switching between 2 or even 3 languages without a second thought, and you're there, an adult with years of education, still fumbling with verb conjugations. It can be quite disheartening.
Disheartening is putting it mildly. I remember trying to learn Spanish in high school. It felt like such an uphill battle, memorizing vocabulary lists and grammar rules. Then I met a 7-year-old who moved from Mexico, and within 6 months, he was speaking English perfectly. No accent, just pure, fluid communication. It truly blew my mind.
That's a powerful anecdote, Alex, and it highlights a key difference. Children aren't typically sitting in a classroom, consciously analyzing grammar. They're just living and interacting. Their learning is a byproduct of their daily life.
Right. It's incidental learning, isn't it? They're not focused on the mechanics of the language. They're focused on expressing a need, making a friend, or understanding a story. The language acquisition happens almost subconsciously.
Precisely. And that leads us to one of the most widely discussed theories, the critical period hypothesis. This theory suggests there's an optimal window during childhood for acquiring language, both first and second. Beyond that period, it becomes significantly harder.
I've heard about that. Is it purely biological, related to brain development and plasticity, or are there other factors at play?
It's generally thought to be a combination. Biologically, children's brains are incredibly plastic, meaning they're more adaptable and flexible. Neural pathways for language are more easily formed and strengthened. As we age, our brains become more set, so to speak.
So it's not just a matter of effort. There's a physiological component to it. Our brains are literally wired differently for language learning as adults.
That's a significant part of it. Think about phonetics, for example. Children can distinguish and reproduce a wider range of sounds than adults. That's why they often achieve native-like pronunciation so much more easily. Their auditory systems are still fine-tuning.
That makes sense. I've always struggled with certain French sounds, no matter how much I practiced. It's like my tongue just won't cooperate, whereas a child would pick that up naturally.
Exactly. But it's not just biology. The environment plays a colossal role. Children are immersed. They hear the language constantly, from parents, caregivers, siblings, TV shows, school. There's no escaping it.
And there's no filter either. Children don't censor themselves. They just blurt things out, make mistakes, and correct them naturally. Adults, on the other hand, are often plagued by self-consciousness and a fear of sounding foolish.
The fear of making mistakes is a huge barrier for adults. We're used to being competent in our native language, so making basic errors in a new language can feel humiliating.
That's so true. They're not worried about their pronunciation or grammar. They just want to communicate. That uninhibited approach is something we adults could definitely learn from, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Absolutely. It's a mindset shift. Another point is the sheer volume of exposure. Children are bombarded with language input for hours every day. Most adult learners, unless they're living in an immersion environment, get far less consistent exposure.
And the quality of that input differs too. Children are often receiving language in context-rich situations, linked directly to objects and actions. Adults might be reading textbooks or listening to podcasts, which is great, of course, but it's often more abstract.
Right. A child learns ball by seeing and touching a ball. An adult might learn ball from a flashcard. The experiential connection is much stronger for the child, leading to deeper encoding in memory.
So, if we were to distill it, it seems like children have a biological advantage in terms of brain plasticity and auditory processing, combined with an ideal learning environment that's highly immersive, context-rich, and free from social inhibitions.
That's a concise summary, but here's the crucial follow-up question. Does this mean adults are doomed to struggle, or are there ways we can tap into some of these advantages?
That's where the conversation gets interesting. While we can't rewind our brains to childhood, we do have certain cognitive advantages that children lack. For instance, adults have highly developed problem-solving skills and metalinguistic awareness.
Exactly. We can consciously analyze grammar rules, compare them to our native language, and understand abstract concepts. A child doesn't sit down and think, this is the subjunctive mood. They just use it.
So our explicit learning abilities are far superior. We can leverage that. We can understand why a certain grammatical structure is used, which can sometimes accelerate learning compared to pure imitation.
And our existing vocabulary in our native language gives us a massive head start. We understand complex concepts. We just need the new words for them. A child is building their entire conceptual framework from scratch.
That's a really good point. We already have a vast network of knowledge and experience to connect new language to. It's not about building a new house, but rather furnishing an existing one with new tools and decor.
A beautiful analogy. So, while children might have an edge in effortless acquisition, adults can be much more efficient and strategic learners. The key is understanding our own strengths and weaknesses.
Definitely. One practical example I often recommend is for adults to actively seek out immersive experiences, even if they can't move abroad. It means changing your environment as much as possible.
Like switching all your phone settings to the target language, watching TV shows with subtitles, listening to music, finding conversation partners online, creating a micro-immersion bubble, if you will.
Exactly. And crucially, embracing the childlike approach of not fearing mistakes. Just speak, even if it's broken. The goal is communication, not perfection, especially in the early stages.
I think that's one of the hardest hurdles for adults to overcome. We're so afraid of being judged. But imagine if a child stopped speaking every time they made a grammatical error. They'd never learn.
It's true. The social conditioning we receive as we grow up teaches us to be precise, to articulate perfectly. But in language learning, especially initially, that can be counterproductive. We need to shed that skin a little.
Shed that skin, I like that. It implies a transformation, a letting go of old habits. Another aspect is motivation. Children are often intrinsically motivated by the immediate need to interact and understand their world.
Adults, on the other hand, might have external motivators like career advancement or travel, which can be powerful, but sometimes they're not as immediate or as deeply ingrained as a child's need to simply connect.
True. For adults, sustaining motivation over the long haul is paramount. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Setting realistic goals, celebrating small victories, and finding genuine enjoyment in the process become vital.
That's where making it fun comes in. If it feels like a chore, you'll burn out. But if you genuinely enjoy watching foreign films or reading books in your target language, it doesn't feel like studying.
Yes, turning learning into a hobby rather than a task. It really changes the dynamic. And let's not forget about time. Children have virtually unlimited time for language exposure, whereas adults are juggling work, family, and other commitments.
Time is a huge constraint. But again, this is where adult strategic thinking comes in. We can optimize our learning. We can identify dead time, commutes, waiting in line, doing chores, and fill it with targeted language input.
Absolutely. Those little pockets of time really add up. 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, listening to a podcast, reviewing flashcards. It's about consistency, not just intensity.
And recognizing that learning doesn't have to be a formal, sit-down affair. It can be integrated into your daily life, making it less of a burden and more of a natural extension of your routine.
Speaking of routine, I think building habits is incredibly effective for adults. If you commit to, say, 20 minutes of language practice every morning with your coffee, it eventually becomes automatic, less reliant on willpower.
That's the power of habit formation. It reduces the mental energy required to start. Children don't need habits for language learning because it's their entire existence. But for us, it's a deliberate choice we have to reinforce.
So, to recap, while children have that amazing neurological flexibility and an ideal, uninhibited immersion environment, adults bring to the table cognitive maturity, strategic learning abilities, and often a clearer sense of purpose.
And if we can combine those adult strengths with a childlike openness to making mistakes and seeking out rich, constant exposure, we can make remarkable progress. It might not look exactly like a child's journey, but it's equally valid and often more rewarding.
Precisely. It's about reframing the narrative. Instead of lamenting what we've lost from childhood, we should celebrate what we've gained as adults. We're not starting from zero. We're building on a lifetime of learning.
That's a very empowering perspective, Emma. And it really underlines that the phrase, "it's too late," is usually a misconception. It's never too late. It's just a different journey with different tools.
Indeed. Perhaps the biggest takeaway is that learning a language as an adult requires intentionality and a willingness to step outside our comfort zones. It's not passive absorption. It's an active, engaged process.
And it offers unique rewards too. The satisfaction of consciously mastering a complex skill, the deep understanding of another culture that comes from explicit learning, and the personal growth derived from pushing past limitations.
Absolutely. It's a testament to our adaptability as human beings. Even if our brains aren't as plastic as a child, they are still capable of incredible feats of learning and adaptation throughout our lives.
So, for all our adult learners out there who might feel discouraged by comparing themselves to children, remember that your journey is unique, valuable, and full of its own distinct advantages. Embrace the process, embrace the mistakes, and keep going.
Fantastic advice, Alex.
Now, let's explore how adult learners can make the most of their strengths.
Indeed. One aspect we briefly mentioned was creating a micro-immersion bubble. This isn't just about changing your phone settings, though that's a good start. It's about consistently seeking out opportunities for genuine interaction.
Yes, genuine interaction is key. It's not enough to just passively consume content. You need to actively produce the language. This means finding native speakers to converse with, joining language exchange groups, or even talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself might sound a bit odd, but it's incredibly effective. It helps you practice forming sentences, retrieve vocabulary, and identify gaps in your knowledge without the pressure of a live audience. I do it all the time when I'm trying to solidify new phrases.
I do too, especially when I'm driving or doing chores. It's like a mental rehearsal. It also helps build confidence for when you do engage in real conversations. It reduces that initial friction.
Absolutely. And for those who struggle with the fear of making mistakes, remember that every error is a learning opportunity. Think of it as data for your brain. It tells you what you need to work on. It's not a sign of failure, but a sign of trying.
That reframe is so important. Instead of seeing a mistake as an embarrassment, view it as a stepping stone. Children don't get stuck on their mistakes. They just adjust and keep trying. We need to adopt that same resilience.
Another crucial strategy for adults is leveraging their existing knowledge. Don't throw away what you already know. Use cognates, draw parallels to your native language, and build on your understanding of how languages generally work.
That's a huge time saver. Instead of learning everything from scratch, you're finding shortcuts.
For example, recognizing Latin roots in English and Spanish can unlock vast amounts of vocabulary simultaneously.
Precisely. It's about being smart, not just working hard. Adults can also benefit immensely from structured learning environments, even if children acquire language more naturally in unstructured settings.
By structured learning environments, do you mean traditional classes, or does that encompass online courses, apps, or even a self-designed curriculum?
All of the above. The point is, adults often thrive with a clear roadmap. Understanding grammar rules, having structured practice exercises, and receiving targeted feedback can be incredibly efficient for us. Children often get by with implicit learning, but explicit instruction can be a powerful accelerator for adults.
I agree. Knowing the why behind the grammar helps solidify it for many adult brains. It's not just rote memorization, it's understanding the underlying logic.
And the why also helps with retention. When you understand the logic, you can apply it to new situations more easily, rather than just recalling a specific phrase you've memorized. Which leads us to the importance of deliberate practice. It's not just about doing an activity, it's about doing it with specific goals in mind, focusing on areas where you need improvement and actively seeking feedback. That's a critical distinction. Passive listening is good for exposure, but active listening, where you're trying to identify specific words, phrases, or grammatical structures, is deliberate practice. Similarly, simply speaking is good, but speaking with the intention of using a newly learned tense or improving your pronunciation is much more effective.
So it's about being intentional with every interaction, every piece of content. Every decision about how to spend your study time should be a conscious one, rather than just drifting through materials.
Exactly. And let's talk about the emotional aspect. Adult learners often have a different relationship with success and failure. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. It's easy to get discouraged and think, this isn't working, or I'm not good at this.
That's the inner critic chiming in, isn't it? Children don't have that highly developed inner critic constantly telling them they're inadequate. They just keep trying.
Right. So cultivating self-compassion is crucial. Recognize that learning a language is a complex, long-term endeavor. There will be plateaus, setbacks, and moments of frustration. That's normal. Be kind to yourself through the process.
And celebrating those small victories. Don't wait until you're perfectly fluent to acknowledge your progress. Being able to order a coffee, understanding a joke, or holding a 5-minute conversation, these are all significant achievements.
Absolutely. Those small victories fuel your motivation and provide tangible proof that your efforts are paying off. It's a positive feedback loop. Without them, it's easy to feel like you're spinning your wheels.
And speaking of effort, it's important to differentiate between sustained effort and brute force cramming. Children learn continuously over years. Adults often try to compress that into a shorter time frame, leading to burnout.
Yes, sustainable learning is the goal. Consistency over intensity. It's far better to do 20-30 minutes of focused practice daily than to do a 5-hour marathon once a week and then nothing for days. That's a common trap, isn't it? The desire to accelerate the process too much. But language learning is fundamentally about building connections in the brain, and that takes time and repeated exposure, irrespective of age. Indeed. So, to bring it all together for our listeners, the ease with which children learn languages is a combination of unique biological factors and an optimal learning environment. But adults, with their cognitive strengths and ability for intentional, strategic learning, are far from disadvantaged. They just need to approach it differently, embrace vulnerability, seek immersion, leverage existing knowledge, cultivate self-compassion, and prioritize consistent, deliberate practice. It's a different path, but one that can lead to incredible fluency and personal enrichment. Beautifully put, Alex. It's not about trying to be a child again, but about being the most effective adult learner you can be. Recognizing the differences isn't a limitation. It's a guide to a more successful and fulfilling learning journey.
Exactly. And for anyone feeling like they're too old or too slow, remember that every step counts. The brain is an amazing organ, and with the right approach and perseverance, it can continue to surprise us with its capacity for growth.
That's a fantastic thought to leave our listeners with. Thank you so much for joining us for this discussion, Alex.
My pleasure, Emma. Always a stimulating conversation.
And thank you to all our Lumosphere English listeners for tuning in. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and remember that your language learning journey is a unique and valuable one. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.